Andrew Tate knew exactly how it was going to end from the very beginning. And I think that if we start at the beginning, we might just be able to figure out how we got into this mess in the first place. Hi, I'm a random person on the internet. You're a random person on the internet. And together, we're here to talk about Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate has been an influencer, a business person, an inmate. He's just a lot. In fact, he's been so much of a mess that even I heard about him and I wasn't even online. He has an army of followers hanging on his every word, spreading his content on every corner of the internet, and buying into his unsurprisingly popular narrative that being a bad person is awesome. There are actually a lot of things to talk about when it comes to Andrew Tate. His awful takes on women, his bizarre business practices, the fact that he wound up in jail, which is actually completely unsurprising considering his awful takes on women and shady business practices. This video is a lot, so I think we should just jump straight into it. But first, let's talk about me. For those of you who may not know, I recently came back after the longest break I've ever taken on YouTube. That break personally helped me a lot. I am feeling better than ever, and I'm back with some great new content too. And so speaking of that new content, I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who watched my last video. To go from no commentary videos in a year and a half to getting over 1 million views in less than a week is actually low-key scary. I guess what I'm trying to say is thank you for being terrifying. Now, in that quick vid, I told people that there would be a comment shout out for whoever could guess who this deep dive video is about, and more importantly, why this video would be about them. Well, I'm proud to announce that this honor goes to Magic L, Andrew Tate, because he's Andrew Tate. Nothing else needs to be said to explain why. I chose this one because the why really spoke to me. Like, Andrew Tate lends himself to conversation just by being Andrew Tate. Trust me, you'll see what I mean in a moment. But before we jump into that, let's just take a quick look at today's sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by ExpressVPN. All right, so I'm gonna give you 3 reasons why you should use ExpressVPN in like less than a minute. Reason number 1, because I said so. Reason number 2, privacy. As your internet service provider, I don't even want to see your data anymore, okay? It's scary. ISPs can see the sites you visit even in incognito, how much time you spent on them, etc. But ExpressVPN lets you encrypt and reroute all of your data through their servers. Reason number 3, and also a huge reason that I use ExpressVPN, accessing content. So I am in America. When I go to Netflix and search for Spirited Away, explore titles related to. But I do not get sad. Instead, I open ExpressVPN, change my location, and then I can connect with one click. Now we head back to Netflix, and what do you know? And I know some of y'all think you're too cool for anime, but that's okay. There are tens of thousands of shows you could unlock today with ExpressVPN, like The Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter. And that's just on Netflix. It works on all services like Disney Plus, Amazon Prime, BBC iPlayer, and more. Find out how you can get 3 months of ExpressVPN for free by clicking the link in the description box below. That's expressvpn.com/D'Angelo. And without further ado, let us jump right into the predictable fate of Andrew Tate. Okay, so the main question I've been asking myself ever since I decided to make this video is like, how do you even start talking about this guy? Where does one begin? I could have gone the Wikipedia route where he's described as being a self-described misogynist. I could have gone the media route where at the time he was described as being, you know, incarcerated. But I think the easiest thing in this scenario is to just get the information straight from the horse's mouth. Who does Andrew Tate say Andrew Tate is? Well, come with me and you'll be in a world of pure concern, honestly, maybe a little bit of confusion, because we're about to visit Andrew Tate's personal website, cobratate.com. So right off the bat, we're greeted by a full screen video that just plays automatically, which is definitely my favorite thing to see immediately upon visiting a new website. And it says here, I'm Andrew Tate, world champion kickboxer and multi-millionaire. Okay. I grew up broke and now I am a multi-millionaire. Okay. I teach the deserving the secrets to modern wealth creation. I mean, everyone deserves wealth, but you know what? I can't knock this so far. Former kickboxer, lifestyle influencer, and he's here to help us secure the bag. So far, so expected, honestly. Anyway, there's some more stuff on the front page about hustling and mindset and a bunch of other things that I've heard from literally every other lifestyle influencer to exist. And if I'm being honest, that's not really what I came here for. I don't want the surface level stuff. I want to know who Andrew Tate is really. So he has this section on the website called 41 Tenets of Tate, which first of all, that's a lot of tenets. And secondly, they'll probably give us a much clearer picture of what kind of message we're dealing with here. All right, tenet number 1. I believe that men have the divine imperative to become as capable, powerful, and competent as possible in this life. I mean, it's kind of weird to limit this to men specifically, but self-improvement is a vibe. So you know what? Half a point, I guess. All right, there's 41 of these, so I am just going to skip around. I prefer loving, rewarding, consensual relationships with beautiful, positive, and virtuous women. Yeah, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do with this information, but at least it's consensual, I guess. That's kind of an interesting thing to highlight specifically, but you know what? If I read this one in good faith, I can just give this a full point. Anyway, next up, we've got this double whammy of Tenet 7 and Tenet 8. So 7 says, I believe that men have the sacred duty to raise strong, capable, and honorable sons. And 8 says, I believe that men have the sacred duty to raise kind, feminine, and virtuous daughters. And I say that neither of these gets a point. Separately, they would be sort of fine, but together they're highly questionable. Men should be strong and capable, and by contrast, women should just be nice, I guess. Tenet 13. I believe that a man's life is difficult, and he has the sacred duty to become strong to handle such difficulty. Oh man. So thankfully, there's a lot of talk about unhealthy masculine gender norms, specifically with how they marginalize people who are not men. But oh my god, they are so bad for men as well. Like this bizarrely prevalent idea that to be a man equals suffering. It's just kind of sad. I mean, I've done my fair share of suffering, don't get me wrong. But you know what's cooler than developing resilience as a trauma response? Developing resilience not as a trauma response. I promise that you can still learn valuable life lessons without experiencing horrible life events. You don't have to go through like difficult rites of passage just to earn the right to be a man. Or so I thought until I read Tenet 30, which literally says, I reserve the right to administer difficult rites of passage to our young men to allow them to earn the rank of manhood. So honestly, what do I know about masculinity? I'm just, you know, a man. Anyways, I'm looking at this one Tenet and I think I see a MAGA hat, so I understand what I'm dealing with here. Andrew Tate is one of those guys. Great. Overall, I've tallied the points and these 41 tenets do not pass the vibe check. Personally, I think the issue is that he stopped at 41 tenets. If he had come up with 42, then he would have found the answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything. But I guess for Andrew Tate, suffering is the answer. Now, as ridiculous as some of those tenets are, they don't even really scratch the surface of the truly awful things that this man has said and done. They more so just provide a window into the mind behind said awful things. So at this point in my research, I felt like I, at the very least, understood who Andrew Tate is. But now I wanted to know where he came from. And I think that by doing that, I might be able to follow a line between where he started and the absolute mess that he wound up in now. All right, so how does one become Andrew Tate? Well, things started off relatively normal. Apparently, Andrew Tate's father, Emory Tate, was a pretty formidable chess player, winning state championships and even the US military's national tournament on 5 separate occasions. So when Andrew Tate was a kid, he was actually a bit of a chess prodigy. By age 6, he had already won a couple of tournaments against adults, and he seemed to really enjoy the game. His dad supported him in his chess endeavors, but he also encouraged Andrew to pursue other interests when the pressure of tournaments started to get to him. Ultimately, Andrew Tate did not have a successful career winning chess championships. He had a successful career winning kickboxing championships. Now, I don't know a lot about kickboxing, or literally any sport for that matter, but I do know that green is good. And there's a lot of green on the kickboxing section of his Wikipedia page, so in my professional opinion, this guy was pretty good. So good, in fact, that he went on to win the world title multiple times. So the reason I'm bringing up the chess and the kickboxing and all the stuff that happened before we got into this mess is it kind of just proves that Andrew Tate never really needed to become Andrew Tate in the first place. Like, he already had everything going for him. He was smart, he was successful, he literally could have just minded his own business and lived happily ever after. But I suppose that would have been dull. Now, even though all this stuff happened before Tate became a household name, his personality still shone through in his kickboxing clips. Even then, you could tell just from watching him that he was the kind of person where nothing was ever really enough. And I think in many ways, that's kind of why people like him.
I see people climb Mount Everest or jump off buildings or do base jumping, or the guy who jumped from space. People think, what's he doing? He's crazy. I understand. Because some people can't live normal lives. Some people cannot just function 9 to 5 office job, get drunk at the weekends. That is not for some individuals, and it's not for me.
So you can see that even early on, Tate wasn't just displaying sportsmanship. He was kind of using it to represent his outlook on life. And at the time, that outlook was relatively harmless, so I completely understand why someone would be drawn to it. I think a lot of people feel the way that Tate felt in that clip. I mean, I know I do. For me, it more so manifests through my creative endeavors, like this video you're watching right now. And for Andrew Tate, it manifested through kickboxing, or at least it did.
I'm constantly looking for never-ending entertainment, and it doesn't exist. I think the only thing that could stop me fighting is if I had enough money to constantly entertain myself.
And wouldn't you know it, that's exactly what wound up happening. By 2016, Tate had all but stopped kickboxing, and he was ready to try his hand at the wonderful world of reality television. And oh my gosh, it was awful.
I'm Andrew Tate, I'm 29 years old, and I'm a 4-time kickboxing world champion.
So Andrew Tate stepped onto the small screen by appearing on season 17 of the wacky British reality TV show, Big Brother. And you know, he seemed like an okay guy.
I'm not that guy. I don't want to run around personally causing genuine distress to anyone.
Except for the part where his sole reason for being on the show was to cause distress to basically everyone.
I know I have the ability to destroy anyone in that house if I chose to.
Now, not all of this is Andrew's fault. The way the show was set up, there were 2 houses and Andrew was part of like the bad guy house, I guess? I don't know. Honestly, I watched all 7 episodes that Andrew was in and I still have literally no idea what Big Brother is even really about. Anyway, he was supposed to be bad. That's the point.
Everyone who is friends now will not be friends 10 minutes after I arrive.
So I don't really blame him for that, since he was kind of just doing his job. But what really stood out to me was the fact that he genuinely seemed to think that everybody on the show is stupid except for him.
Attention-seeking morons, jumping all over the place, trying their very, very best to be cool or funny.
At first, I was like, nah, this got to be a bit, right? Like, there's no way my guy thinks he's the main character of a show with like 16 people on it. But he did.
They're on TV and running around acting like fools, and I'm trying to actually complete the task.
Everyone's a moron or a fool, but not Andrew. Andrew Tate is a soldier.
You have one soldier here capable of doing anything, and that is me.
And, you know, I love a good ego trip myself, but maybe not when it's at the expense of literally everyone else. But yeah, the more they let this man talk, the more I was like, okay.
Nothing's difficult for me.
I see myself as smarter than average.
You know, thinking back about anyone I've ever met who's described themselves as being smarter than other people, they all have this really funny thing in common where, like, they're not.
So I know I'm the most intelligent person in this house. I know I'm the most capable person in this house. Fact.
The man just could not shut his mouth about how intelligent he was.
I'm intelligent enough to understand that if you want to learn something, you have to shut your mouth.
So yeah, needless to say, people didn't really like this guy. And I guess Channel 5 didn't either because he wasn't on the show for very long. See, Tate was already coming under fire from viewers, not just because he was a jerk on the show, but because he was a jerk on Twitter as well. Certain tweets resurfaced that he had made prior to the show, all of which are so stupid that I'll lose brain cells if I think about them for another nanosecond. Lately, whenever I can help it, I've been trying not to perceive Twitter as a concept for more than 5 minutes at a time. And honestly, it's been helping a lot. Anyway, Tate was now receiving mainstream media coverage due to these tweets, which was obviously not a good look for the network, but Channel 5 didn't really do anything about it since he didn't make those tweets while he was actually on the show. But then, just a few episodes into the season, he got dropped anyway.
I'm Andrew, and I just want you all to know that I'm no longer in the Big Brother house, I'm afraid.
So if not the tweets, then why? Well, and get this, Andrew claims that he got booted from the show because he was simply too good at it. According to Tate, if he had gone through with his master plan, then it would have just been so chaotic and so dramatic that it wound up just being easier to remove him from the show entirely.
I had an amazing master plan, and the producers of the show were worried that if I did such an amazing plan and got caught, that it was going to kick off in a big way.
Now, if you're thinking, wow, that makes absolutely no sense, but okay, don't worry, so was I. And so was Channel 5, apparently. They promptly issued a statement debunking Andrew's claims, instead reiterating that it wasn't due to the tweets, but that it was because of, quote, information which came to light. Tate then went on to imply that the real reason he was banned was a resurfaced video from 2012 showing him and a partner engaging in BDSM. But this also makes no sense because people were honestly doing freakier things than that on Big Brother itself. The show's low-key crazy. So dropping him over that would just be silly. Besides, Channel 5 never actually confirmed the reason, so it's safe to assume that if he lied the first time, then he lied the second time too. So what was this cryptic information that came to light? Why was Andrew Tate actually ousted from Big Brother? Well, the real reason has a lot to do with why he's currently under house arrest right now, but that wasn't going to come up for years, so we're not there yet. See, Andrew Tate was getting up to some pretty shady stuff behind the scenes. So Tate was good at kickboxing and it paid the bills, but it didn't really give him the big bucks he was looking for. Similarly, his reality TV show was basically over before it started, so that didn't really do much for his bottom line either. But thankfully for him and no one else, he had a very great and normal idea: running an online webcam model business.
I found this little webcam thing And I was like, this might be some money. So I text all my girlfriends, I think it was 5 of them, text all 5, said, you're all coming here to live with me and work with me. None of them knew about each other.
Remember that one tenet where he was like, I prefer consensual relationships with virtuous women? Well, I guess women is plural now that I think about it. It's interesting that the women in this scenario have to be virtuous, but he gets to be so not virtuous that he's stringing along multiple people into thinking they're in a monogamous relationship with him, but they're not. Very interesting.
I'm retired from fighting. I have no money. I'm running out of money. So I put them all around the same table. And I was like, look, we're going to start a webcam business. You're going to stay. You're going to live in London. I'm going to look after you. And we're going to get rich.
So Andrew puts his get rich quick scheme into action. And because we live in the simulation and nothing is real, it actually works.
Long story short, 3 left, 2 stayed. Those are my first 2 girls. And we started this little webcam business from my apartment. And it just grew and grew and grew. And it got to the point where at one point I had 75 women working for me in 4 locations.
Imagine 3 people breaking up with you at the same time. Anyways, at this point, you may be asking yourself, how exactly did this webcam business work? Or you may not be asking yourself that. I definitely didn't ask, but Andrew could not wait to share it with us regardless.
So it's a very simple, it's a diagram. Let me draw you a diagram because it results in me being a G. Let me draw something for you.
I have to say, the way in which he explains this business model is so juvenile and ridiculous that I actually find it fascinating.
So basically, this is me at the top. Tate.
I don't know how to explain this rationally, but for some reason, I find the sound of him writing on the paper to be so funny, unironically.
Below me are chicks.
So we've got Andrew, we've got the women he's employing. There's only one ingredient left.
And below the chicks are men that coincidentally look a lot like you guys.
I'm sure they do. So at this point, after such a compelling setup, I just had to see how it all came together.
Me at the top, you have the chicks below. This is one chick, but there can be many. And then you have the geeks. And what would happen is the geeks sent their money to the chick, and the chick gave her money to me.
Where do I sign? Now, why he felt the need to diagram what could so clearly have been explained via a single sentence is beyond me, but you can't argue with the result. The chart speaks for itself. So yeah, in a nutshell, he's just profiting off a bunch of women who are profiting off a bunch of men because he's strong, ?
I'm such a brilliant individual because I'm such a masterful human. I don't have the weaknesses that other people have. As one of the strongest men in the world, I make money from the vices of weaker men.
Don't you just love it when people say the quiet part out loud? Though I gotta say, that is one of the most delusional definitions of strength I have ever heard. Anyways, this is where Andrew Tate's money came from. Not kickboxing, not TV, just good old-fashioned scamming the weak. In his own words. Well, I guess he didn't use the word scam, but his brother did. We'll get to all of that in a second. Now, as shady as all of this was, things were still about to get a whole lot weirder.
I was in England, I got tired of England, I had to decide to move somewhere, and I'd fought in Romania a few times.
So Andrew Tate decides to move from the UK to Romania, of all places? What drew him there, you might ask? The rich cultural history? The stunning nature? Yeah, how about a police investigation?
He starts texting me, you owe me my last month's wages, you owe me my money, give me my money. Did I text her back? I ain't paying you nothing, you threw up my blah, 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 blah. She went to the police.
Apparently, all was not déjà vu in Andrew Tate's webcam world, because after a disagreement with one of his employees, they had a fight. Now, Tate insists that he did not lay a hand on her, except for the part where he, and I quote, got her up by the 2 arms and marched her out the door. But she, on the other hand,
told the police I hit her.
I did not hit her.
And I heard the door boom, 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 boom. And I don't know how I knew. I just knew it was police.
So now some months have passed and the police have apparently raided his place and launched a full-scale investigation. I'm not really sure what they thought they'd find, but it clearly wasn't good since he wound up getting detained at one point.
They kept me in a cell for a day and a half. They sent officers to raid my house, took all my electronics, took all my phones, all my laptops.
Now, Tate is sparse with the details of how this whole investigation wound up drawing to a close. But what is clear is that as soon as he had the chance, he decided he would never deal with the UK police ever again.
So I had 11 new charges, blah, 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 and I just woke up one day and said, I cannot live in this I will not live under a government that will do this to me when I've done nothing wrong.
Now, was Andrew Tate completely innocent, or is there some merit to those 11 charges? I guess the only way we would really know is if the accusation somehow followed him all the way to Romania. I sure hope that doesn't happen at any point in the future.
I had a fight coming up in Romania, so I went and fought in Romania, and I just thought, you know what? I'll hang around here for a few months. And then boom, 5 years later, I'm still there.
Chaotic. That's what that was. Now, I know at this point, we're all just so sad that Andrew had to leave his booming webcam business behind. Oh, wait, no, he didn't. He just started using Romanian women instead, and it became more profitable than ever. Okay, cool. And honestly, why would I expect anything else? Now, this is actually a great time to interject and add a new person to the scenario. Tristan Tate. Tristan Tate is Andrew Tate's younger brother. I didn't mention him yet because when I try to focus on more than one thing at a time, I suffer, but don't let his absence from this video fool you. Tristan is a huge part of the story, and for what it's worth, he is currently under house arrest as well. So remember when I said that Andrew's brother called his whole webcam business a scam? Yeah, he wasn't exactly criticizing it. He was actually bragging. In an interview with the Daily Mirror, Tristan had these lovely words to say about how their business was going in Romania. It's a total scam. The model just has their hands on the keyboard that isn't even plugged in. I have real professionals who are fluent in English behind the scenes getting men hooked, finding out their interests, the name of their dog. A guy will come online, they'll say, "How's Sparky?" It's an operation of professionals who lure these men in. Great. So if things weren't clear enough before, we're now using the words lure and scam. But if the deceit wasn't enough for you, then don't worry, because there's a healthy dose of emotional manipulation in there as well. Broadcasting is for entertainment purposes only. That means if a model says she has a sick dog or a sick grandma, it doesn't have to be true. All cash given to models is a voluntary sign of gratitude for their time broadcasting. So Andrew Tate describes their user base as being weak, and Tristan Tate describes their operation as basically just lying. And you know what? In a weird way, I almost prefer this to pretending like this business is anything other than a total scam. Like, cool, I guess. But you know what would be even cooler? Not deceiving people and taking advantage of them. Men will give all they have. I've seen men sell cars, TVs. You know what? Next time someone tells me that YouTube is not a real job, I'm gonna say, oh yeah? Well, at least I don't pay a bunch of girls to scam a bunch of guys, and then I'll just watch as they are utterly and understandably confused. But yeah, Tristan Tate, everybody. Again, I can't overstate how much Tristan was involved with every single thing that Andrew got into.
Me and my brother, we've always been a solid team. Everything that we've done, from kickboxing to any businesses, we've always done together.
Aw, how sweet. Anyway, when I say that the Tate brothers were making money from this, I mean big money.
We have 4 or 5 cars in total. Some are in England, 3 of them are here.
This car was €250,000.
So yeah, nice to see that the repercussions of being willingly awful are just more money than you know what to do with. Isn't that wonderful? And that's how Andrew Tate became Andrew Tate, folks. Started off with pretty much the whole world at his fingertips, but for some reason chose the worst possible outcome every single time. But it turns out that fortune wasn't the only thing in store for the Tate brothers. Thanks to the power of the internet, Andrew was about to get very famous. It was the middle of 2022 and I remember it all. Depth v. Heard was finally drawing to a close. The James Webb Space Telescope had just dropped its first pictures of the final frontier, and Andrew Tate's name started trending basically everywhere. But like, how did this even happen? Well, it's mostly due to something that you may have already surmised from this video. Andrew Tate just kind of talks a lot. Like in the years leading up to his explosion in infamy, he generated just enough interest between kickboxing, reality TV, and his shady online business ventures to find himself in a consistent stream of interviews. And let me tell you, none of these interviews were good.
Some of your views are very extreme.
People really genuinely think I'm crazy.
There's something wrong with you,
This is why I'm
Andrew.
seen as an extremist.
Some of my views are all over the place.
Cancelled.
And you're saying I got crazy views.
So I found myself at yet another crossroads when it came to this point in my research. How do I even start talking about these interviews when there are just so many interviews? I didn't want to just watch out of context compilations because I really wanted the full picture here. So I formulated a master plan. A plan so masterful, in fact, that the producers of Big Brother kicked me off of the show as well, and I wasn't even on it. I just decided to chronologically watch one interview from each year from 2018 to 2022. If I can't watch 5 years worth of interviews, then I'll just have to watch interviews from across 5 years. 2018 was the year after he moved to Romania, and 2022 was the year he blew up, so we'll be able to follow his full transformation into a literal caricature of himself. So in this first interview, Andrew is here to discuss fitness, motivation, and depression?
Most people are depressed. They're just living lives they're unhappy with, and they need to change them.
Tate goes on to present his life-changing contribution to the field of neuroscience, which is that depression isn't actually real.
Absolutely out of nowhere, for no reason, from the sky, something's going to cripple your brain to a level where you can't function. I don't believe that.
I love how he just gives a perfect description of depression, like down to the T, but only to prove that it doesn't exist. Anyway, I feel like people who have never experienced depression never stop to ask themselves this really simple question. Does your opinion about this topic actually matter? Now, the answer could be yes, but I'm here to tell you that it is probably no.
What you're using is depression as an excuse, a facilitator to avoid going to the gym, to avoid fixing your life.
I can't even count the number of times I've heard this argument that people who have depression are basically just using it as an excuse to avoid not having depression. It doesn't really make much sense. But you know what? Since people's lived experiences and also science don't seem to be enough to convince Andrew, let's explain this one with a metaphor that even he would understand. Like cars. As we saw, he had like 5 cars around the time of this interview. So say I'm in a Ferrari. It's got a shiny red exterior, a whole lot of horsepower. You know, it's just like any other car that happens to be a Ferrari, except this one doesn't have any gas. However, luckily for me, it's actually a Ferrari Stradale, which is a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, so gas isn't as much of a problem. Except this one also has a dead battery because depression just be like that sometimes. So would it make any sense at all for a person with a typical Ferrari to point at mine and go like, hey, yours looks just like mine and I can drive. You're just using your lack of gas as an excuse. No, that obviously doesn't make any sense. As much as I would love to drive around with all the other Ferrari people, I would either have to push this 3,500 pound car around or materialize gas out of thin air. And you know what? Depression does make you pretty good at pushing through heaviness and materializing things out of nothing, but that doesn't change the fact that it's never as simple as just drive or fix your life, you know? But ultimately, what do I know about depression? I've just, you know, experienced chronic depression.
You're desperate to convince me that it's real and convince me how dangerous it is. Why are you sticking up for this thing? This is what's ruining you.
Why do you think depression is real if it is also bad? We have reached the philosophical heights of Jaden Smith in 2013, except for the part where Jaden Smith was a literal child, while Andrew Tate, on the other hand, is, well, Andrew Tate.
If it was the case the way they're teaching it in the Western world, depression would be universal across the human species. How come there's countries where no one has this garbage?
Where though? Can I go to these magical countries where nobody has depression? Is it Romania? Oh, nope, there's depression in Romania. Is it literally anywhere else in the world? Oh, okay, guess not. And Tate actually does this a lot, where he's like, I no longer live in the Western world, and therefore I'm qualified to speak about this. And then he follows it up with something completely incorrect every single time.
It really is the scourge of the Western world. I have a unique view on the world because I live in Eastern Europe.
The funniest part about his perspective shifting move from the UK to Romania is that Romania and the UK are not actually that far apart. Like, there are a few countries between them for sure, but we're talking about a 3-hour flight here. In fact, looking at a world map, Romania is literally right there. Who's gonna tell bro that he lives in the same part of the world that he did before? Because let me tell you something. It's not gonna be me. But anyway, Andrew Tate in 2018. Yay! Even though it was still through the lens of fitness and motivation, we were already getting a comprehensive and completely unasked for introduction to Andrew Tate's worldview. But dear God, does that worldview get so much worse. So let's see how things have changed by 2019.
Western women, man, just crazy.
Oh, okay, I guess they haven't. So by 2018, Tate had already begun building his reputation as not just the kickboxing guy, but as a thought leader within the manosphere. But like, his thoughts were unhinged and the manosphere is just a bunch of men who hate women, so there's that. In this interview, Tate goes on to share his opinions about how the West has fallen and Eastern women are just so much better. Which, by the way, before we get into that, can I just pose a quick question to all the West stands out there? No Kanye. So if Western ideals are all in such a complete and utter decline right now, doesn't that kind of mean they were never actually that compelling in the first place? Like, all it took was a couple human rights for women and y'all just folded? Honestly, skill issue.
The reason Eastern European women are so beautiful is not just genetic. It's that a lot of them understand my best chance at a good life is through a good guy.
Yeah, they have
they're not going to get some career.
So as per this massive and questionable generalization, he seems to think it's better when women are completely and utterly dependent on you. I, on the other hand, think that's completely and utterly terrifying. If you honestly think I'm out here trying to support 2 people on 1 income in this economy, you have another thing coming. Anyway, he continues to outline why women over there are just so much better, and wow, do I wish he would stop.
There's no rape culture garbage. It's not taught. It's not thought of. No one really does it. A girl wouldn't stay around your house unless she wants to have sex with you because she understands that why the would she stay around your house otherwise?
You can't think of any other reason a woman would be at your house. I think that says more about your perception of women than it does about actual women. And this line of thinking is really weird because you're saying if she doesn't want it, then she shouldn't be at your house. So if she is at your house, do you think that means she owes you? Because yes, of course, that's what he thinks. I don't know why I'm phrasing this as a question.
I give my attention to get sex. She gives her sex to get attention. That's how it should work. That's the fair trade. But now you have girls who get all the attention without returning the sex part.
The idea that someone owes you something because you paid attention to them is pretty much one of the most harmful lines of thinking you can get into. It's not just Andrew Tate either. A lot of people fundamentally believe this. It's like this pervasive, unchecked myth that you can get the girl if you're persistent enough. Or more specifically, that you should get the girl if you're persistent enough. Forget agency. She actually owes you because you chose her by paying attention. The idea that this is fair speaks to not only a dangerous entitlement, but also a complete lack of touch with reality when it comes to how to deal with other people. But don't worry, that was just one of his completely deranged opinions about women.
Women are a certain way. Yeah, it's annoying. But if you can identify it, and this is why your book's so great, if you can identify it and understand it, then what you need to do is position yourself in a way that you can use it against them, exploit them.
I think it's really telling that he says women are a certain way. Yeah, it's annoying, because that probably highlights what I think is like the weirdest part about guys like this. They don't even really like women. They don't want to be friends. They don't enjoy being around them. And yet they base their entire self-worth off of their ability to get women. It is concerning. Anyway, he doesn't go into too much detail about how exactly we can use the nature of women against them, so I guess that just remained a mystery until the next interview I started. So by 2020, he had already made quite a name for himself as a misogynist micro-influencer, and his takes on gender roles were finally on full display.
I think women are just completely and utterly motivated by their emotions. If you can get any emotion out of a girl, even if it's hate, you're going to be all right.
So in this interview, he spends a bunch of time explaining that the best way to manipulate women is to make them feel things, because feelings are all they have. In fact, according to Tate, women are just so motivated by their emotions that even negative emotions work, which is why women stay in toxic relationships.
The extreme jealousy or the fact that he was so obsessed with you, or there's something about certain toxic relationships that even women enjoy.
It's like any little piece of Andrew's outlook by itself is already wrong, but when you put it all together, it's just kind of laughable, but also extremely harmful, and it just goes on and on.
This is the basic dynamic of male females. If a woman respects you, she wants to have sex with you. It doesn't matter if a woman likes you.
So first we see that he doesn't even like women because they're annoying and he's just manipulating them. And now we see that the women don't even have to like him because they're just going purely off of emotions, at least in his brain. And like, it's easy to point out how problematic this mentality is, but it's also just kind of sad. It's a really defeated way to go about life just because nobody actually likes you. But who needs to be liked if you're respected, I guess? And if that whole respect bit sounds like it came straight out of the 1950s, don't worry, there's plenty more where that came from.
There's always a chain of command. And if the woman's in charge, she's going to resent you. So that by default means it has to be the man.
If your masculinity cannot exist without looking down on femininity, then I hate to break it to you, but you are not masculine. End of story. You are just an insecure weirdo, and you have a dramatically outdated understanding of how the world works. If you think the perfect woman should be completely dependent on you, available at your beck and call, and utterly subservient, why don't you just go the extra mile and say she should cook and clean as well?
A girl who's a solid 9 or a 10, who will ignore all the famous people, who will be loyal to you even though you're not physically loyal to her, who will obey you, who will cook, who will clean, who will do as you say, who will let you lead. But you're never going to get there unless you tear through a whole bunch of girls.
Yeah, okay, well, there you go. At least he's upfront about it, I guess. So even though I had only watched 3 out of 5 interviews at this point, I feel like I understood this stage of Andrew's character arc well enough, but he wasn't done. He kept telling the same stories and spewing the same nonsense and doing the same kind of interviews to where he actually just started turning into a caricature of himself. You can really see it in this next interview that he did on the podcast, Your Mom's House, and you'll never guess what topic came up during this one.
But a beautiful woman who doesn't behave and doesn't obey isn't really much status.
Yep.
So when we're looking for status, we want a beautiful woman who is compliant.
By this point, he really started leaning into the fact that people expected him to say crazy things. But like, he was just saying the same crazy things that he's always said, even in a completely serious context before he was popular. Anyways, before we move forward, I just have to say that the two hosts of this podcast, they're like a husband and wife comedy duo. I don't know anything about them outside the context of this interview, but in this interview, they were hilarious.
Well, he made a lot of sense. And just,
What do you
I'm just saying, keep taking notes. Don't even talk to me. Keep taking notes.
See, in all interviews before this one, Andrew's interviewers just let him talk and talk because they were in complete agreement with everything he was saying. But on this podcast, it's really obvious that both hosts thought he was completely full of it. And because they're comedians, they managed to leverage that into something hilarious. But of course, never to be outdone. Andrew tried his hand at comedy during this interview as well. And needless to say, it went about as well as you would expect.
All men want robots. That's all we want.
Yeah.
4 wives, robots, inshallah. Put the burk on.
The host kept setting Andrew up too. Like, they caught this man in every resolution from 360p to 8K, and all they had to do was let him cook. This resulted in moments where he somehow seemed even worse than usual, like this.
So you'd like 1920.
I want the younger she is,
Fresh
and
slate.
the younger and the more beautiful she is, the less men she slept with.
If you're in your mid-30s and someone asks you if you like 19-year-olds and you answer with anything other than no or ill, I have some information for you that you may not like. You are a weirdo. Not to mention his bizarre reasoning for why he would want to date someone so young, which, by the way, shout out the co-host because she saw right through that and called him out for it to his face.
If a woman's only been with a few guys, she's much more likely to fall in love with you, be a better partner, etc.
Oh, so you're afraid of losing?
Not afraid.
The older one.
Okay,
You don't
first,
like to lose
whoa.
it.
Use the word afraid.
I find this moment really interesting because it really highlights how the only context in which Andrew Tate could possibly sound correct is one in which he's surrounded only by people who agree with him. Just throw one person in there with a differing opinion, and all of a sudden it all falls really flat really fast. But we'll see more of that in the next and final interview. Anyway, the craziest thing is, despite the fact that the host let him dig his own grave for like an hour straight, Andrew seemed completely oblivious to this fact. The interviewers gave him this very tongue-in-cheek compliment at the end, and I feel like the irony just went right over his head.
I mean, I had high expectations, but you exceeded them on this.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
I guess the apple doesn't fall very far from the tree either, because Tate's fans don't seem to realize that he completely bombed this interview. There's some gems on that video like Tate is a comedic genius, or Tate's comedic timing is amazing without even trying, or how can Andrew be funnier than most comedians? I hate to break it to you, but this interview is funny because it's being hosted by two stand-up comedians, not because Andrew Tate has a shred of comedic talent in his body. Though, full disclosure, I did laugh at a lot of the things he said during this interview, but I laughed at them the same way I would laugh at like a kid falling over. Like, ultimately, I would prefer that it hadn't happened. But it did. And attributing any sort of comedic genius to the kid in the scenario was just like calling Andrew Tate funny, I guess. Anyway, that interview shows what happens if someone challenges Tate in a lighthearted manner. This last interview from 2022 that we're going to look at shows what happens when someone confronts him head on. And it does not go well for him.
Very nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you. Andrew Tate, what's your name?
Andrew, nice to meet you. Cheyenne.
This interview is definitely the most insightful because it's presented as a sort of playful mock date between Andrew and Cheyenne. It's just a small window of insight into how Andrew might conduct himself on an actual date, maybe. And it's not pretty.
Besides you and the police, I don't often answer questions.
Real quick, speaking of the police, it's worth noting that Andrew actually talks about the police quite a bit throughout these interviews, and it's always in the context of a hypothetical situation in which he goes to jail for a really long time.
I would much rather have 1 or 2 girls who would wait for me through a prison stretch.
I'm going to jail 6 years, they're locking me up, and she'll visit every week.
Every Friday, a visitation.
That's what every man truly, really wants.
No, Andrew, I don't think I want that. I don't think I've ever envisioned myself going to prison for any reason, to be honest. I don't think this is a normal train of thought for people who aren't at risk of being hit with criminal charges, but okay. Anyway, their conversation quickly turns to, you guessed it, women. And I'm glad it did, because you get to see how all of his opinions hold up the moment he's face to face with an actual woman. Spoiler alert, they don't. So he mentioned this briefly in the 2020 interview, but in this one, Andrew decides to elaborate on his view that women should be loyal, but men don't have to be.
But are you loyal?
let's not pretend that male loyalty and female loyalty are the same thing.
His reasoning here, if that's what you want to call this, is that it's not bad when a man cheats because men can do so without emotion. But since feelings are involved when a woman cheats, then that makes her a bad person. Cheyenne points out that this is ridiculous, and Tate just kind of loses it.
A woman won't do that. So don't lie to me and pretend. No, you won't.
It's crazy how he thinks women are the emotional ones, but the moment a woman calmly disagrees with him, he just starts yelling. Anyway, he dials it down and tries to provide some context for his opinions, and this context does not help whatsoever.
I don't want people to look at this and think I'm disrespecting females. I'm not. I'm saying we have different roles. We do different things.
Men who call women females, like as a noun, are just built different. Like, you can just say women, my guy, my male. Your tongue will not fall out of your mouth, unfortunately. Anyway, by the end of the interview, Cheyenne has absolutely had it, and she makes that loud and clear.
Your perception of women is messed up because maybe it's just the certain women that you know.
Stop trying to pretend I know bad women.
No, but I'm saying, but that's clearly what it is. That's clearly what it is.
No, it's not.
Because there's plenty of other good women, and this is why for me it's exhausting explaining this to you because there's so many good women.
Honestly, Cheyenne was pretty much a Chad throughout this entire interview, whereas Andrew just looked like a fool the entire time. Just by offering differing opinions and the occasional quip here and there, she really helped to highlight just how flimsy his entire shtick is.
But don't they say like the loudest person in the room is the weakest?
Am I weak now?
No, but I'm just saying, don't people say that?
Let's have an arm wrestle.
I'm not doing an arm wrestle.
The man is simply ridiculous. Now, unlike the previous interview, I think Andrew actually realized, like, there's no way anyone would think he actually looked good in this interview. So he tried to frame it all as being part of his master plan to make her upset.
Everything I say is deliberately designed to anger you.
If I had a nickel for every time he made this excuse, I would have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's more than the amount of brain cells that I have left after watching 5 consecutive Andrew Tate interviews in full. Speaking of brain rot, would you believe that his followers actually try to claim that Cheyenne, of all people, looked bad in this interview? It's so sad to think that there's people out there thinking she killed this interview. The levels of irony here are matched only by the levels of delusion one would need to attain to become this big of an Andrew Tate fan. But yeah, that was my crash course recap of Andrew Tate's progression between the move from Romania to mid-2022. And I just want to point out right here, I can't even cover all of Tate's wrong opinions in one video. Almost every single opinion he holds is wrong, and he's shared almost every single opinion he holds. Disappointing and surprising. Now, if 2018 through 2022 marked the rise of Andrew Tate and his problematic beliefs, then mid-2022 marked the rise of the Andrew Tate superfan. And who do we have to thank for this completely unchecked spread of harmful content? Why TikTok, of course, because it's always the ones that you least expect. I think the strangest thing about Andrew Tate's rise to TikTok prominence is the fact that at the end of the day, he didn't even really have to post anything on TikTok. The secret behind his success was the fact that people were actually posting clips to TikTok for him. And by people, I mean a lot of people. Behold, the Andrew Tate TikTok fan account. Never before have I seen one person's face plastered across this many fan-operated social media accounts. They all follow the same formula too. They take his name or one of his nicknames like Top G or Cobra, and they post any and every Tate clip they can find from his old interviews, streams, and videos. And let's just say they were finding some interesting clips. Now, this in and of itself is bad enough, but when you start considering what Tate's message is and who TikTok serves content to, it immediately becomes obvious how harmful this is. If you ask a bunch of teenagers what social media platforms they use, YouTube is going to be the most common answer, but TikTok is actually right under that, beating out both Instagram and Twitter. So with 2 out of every 3 teens saying they use the app, we've basically just taken Andrew Tate's vile message and outdated worldview and thrown it at a bunch of literal children via an influx of short videos and TikTok's trademark tonal whiplash. And the sneakiest part is, thanks to TikTok's algorithm, nobody even had to search for this. The Guardian's Observer published an article where they created a fake TikTok account for an imaginary teenager so they could see just how easy it was to get Tate to show up on their For You page. And it was very easy. They mentioned that their content started off normally, but after watching videos aimed at male users, including a clip from the Alpha Blokes podcast and a clip of a TikToker discussing how men, quote, don't talk about their feelings, the algorithm began suggesting more content that appeared to be tailored for men. I think it's really important to point out how innocuous this pipeline seems on the surface. It doesn't start off with harmful content. In fact, it's the opposite. Men talking about their feelings is a good thing. So good, in fact, that that's what draws young men over to that side of TikTok. But once you're on that side of TikTok, that's when the algorithm starts trying to push things just a little bit further. The Tate content was by far the most widespread. When opening the app again a week later, the account was again flooded with Tate content, with 8 out of the first 20 videos being of Tate. Now, part of what makes this pipeline so insidious is the fact that this ramp from harmless content to misogynistic lunacy isn't just present on a macro level. The same pattern holds true within the actual Tate clips that were recommended to everyone as well. So let's say you're new to Andrew Tate's content. God, I wish that were me. Anyway, TikTok might start you off with a lighthearted clip like this.
Some child is outside enjoying their life, playing with toys and smiling in the sunshine and having fun. I hate happiness. I hate happy children.
And then you do that exhaling from your nose instead of laughing thing, right? Like, this guy is pretty funny. I hate happiness as well. So then you get a video like this.
The only water I drink is sparkling water because sparkling water is for rich people.
We're talking about clips that are objectively harmless, if only because of how ridiculous they are. Besides, it's pretty obvious that in these TikToks, he's not being completely serious.
Anyone who drinks still water is excommunicated permanently.
Believe it or not, I can't really blame anyone for falling into the Andrew Tate trap if they had never heard of him before. At first, people just gravitate towards his content because they find it funny. Now, it is important to note that even though these clips were comedic in nature, they still had all the undertones of Tate's most bizarre beliefs.
I do know how to administer CPR. However, I will not administer CPR unless you're a hot female.
I would even venture a guess that his humor appeals to children just by nature of how exceedingly immature it is.
Who knows CPR? Well, me. Help him. No. Why? Because I ain't gay.
So at this point, the kids are on board, right? Tate is loud, he says silly things, and he looks like a cartoon character. What more would a kid actually ask for? Again, it's all completely harmless until said child starts getting clips on their For You page like this.
If you look at the roles of society, I believe men are still doing their job, but I don't know if women are doing their job. Women's job always was procreation, to look after the family and to look after the man.
Remember how this all started because we, an imaginary teenage boy on the internet, we're clicking into videos about men not sharing their feelings? What's happening here is we're taking people who feel sad, lost, angry, and we're finally giving them a target to direct their animosity towards. The very same target that Andrew Tate directs his animosity towards. Because if we've established one thing throughout this video so far, it's that Andrew Tate does not like women.
I don't really care about abortion. If women want to do dumb shit with their bodies and f their own lives up and kill their own kids, go do it then.
The idea of some random middle schooler watching a video like that and going, yeah, sounds right to me, it's already unsettling enough. But the very heart of Andrew Tate's ideology isn't just misinformation or vitriol, it's violence.
Have you ever seen a woman try and do anything competently?
See, this next clip is just bizarre. He's sharing what he would do in some made-up scenario where his partner catches him cheating and then she approaches him with a machete, ?
If a girl comes at you, you cheater, you're cheating. It's bang out the machete, boom in her face, and then grip her up by the neck. Like, shut up,
To wave around an actual machete on camera and act out and describe depictions of violence against women in a fictional scenario you made up is deranged. Andrew Tate is deranged. The fact that TikTok would recommend this clip to anyone at all, let alone a child, absolutely deranged. But the worst part was that at this point, it was far too late. The Tate mania had already begun. There were so many reactions to so many clips from so many interviews posted by so many accounts that the hashtag Andrew Tate passed a whopping 13 billion views. And that was just on TikTok. After years of hateful content, Tate had finally found his fan base and they were obsessed. Despite all the blatant misogyny that he wasn't even trying to hide, they treated him like he was just your average e-celebrity. In fact, there were even Andrew Tate fan cams. When I discovered that y'all were out here making Andrew Tate edits, I felt like I was in some sort of Black Mirror episode. Like, y'all have access to editing software, and this is what you're gonna do with it for a man who is, by all accounts, pretty much the worst? I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The internet was a mistake. But there is one thing that I have to admit. I did think that last one was kind of fire. I'm not gonna lie. I'm an editor myself, okay? I don't want to be a hater. But hey, if you weren't weirded out by the edits, then I can do you one better. With Tate's newfound fans going through everything from his kickboxing record to his Big Brother days, they unearthed something that, in all honesty, should have stayed buried forever. Something so unforgivable that I almost decided against including it in this video. But then I realized, if I had to suffer through this, so do you. So behold, Andrew Tate's failed music career.
What do you do with this whole music video thing, man?
Bruv, my life is a music video.
Listen, I of all people know that the word cringe has just lost all meaning, but I promise you, there is no other word for this. Andrew Tate has undeniably posted cringe.
That's me. That's me. Big Daddy T-A-T to the E.
Now, if there is one thing I know from listening to a whole lot of music, it's that you can't just judge an artist off of one song. So I decided, completely against my better judgment, to check out the rest of his discography. And my honest reaction, I feel like the word discography is a little too strong in this case.
Now we flexing on the broke boys. Flexing on.
It doesn't sound good. There's even this one song where he's trying to sing, I think.
Waiting for a man to flop, but I'm Big Daddy Tate, so I can never stop.
At first, I couldn't even tell if this was supposed to be singing unironically. I was like, maybe he's just speaking melodically. But it turns out I didn't even need to question anything because Andrew just decided to tell us the answer in the lyrics. Or I guess he decided to sing us the answer.
And I bet you never thought that I would sing. Without a queen, maybe I can be a king.
There it is. The only thing that Andrew Tate has gotten right in this entire video. I never expected him to sing. I think the best way to sum up my feelings about this unholy music that his fans unearthed is to quote this one comment I found underneath one of his music videos. This song is fire. You just need to work on your flows, lyricism, delivery, clarity, cadence, and production. Fire emoji, fire emoji, fire emoji. Anyway, I literally promise that the rest of the video is not dedicated to Andrew Tate's music. It's more so about the repercussions of his actions. But speaking of that, I wanted to highlight a couple of lines from his songs that really stood out in light of recent events.
We throw money, you throw shade, kicking down the door like police in a raid.
Man, this guy is just obsessed with the police investigating him and sending him to jail.
Men still want to see me locked up, but ain't nothing ever stopped us.
Though I'm sure this is all going to age perfectly and there will be absolutely nothing to worry about. But yeah, that's how Andrew Tate wound up becoming so popular that in June 2022, people looked up his name more often than Donald Trump and Kim Kardashian, and he didn't even really have to post anything. Now, when you go from a relatively obscure misogynist to the most talked about person on the internet, people are going to start paying attention. How Andrew Tate built an army of lonely, angry men. Meet Andrew Tate, the ex-kickboxer red-pilling the angry young men of America. The internet can't stop talking about Andrew Tate. This is the part where I first heard about him, despite not even being on the internet at the time. I remember taking one look at him and his story and just going, nah, I'm good. But little did I know things would get so much worse. So at this point, it's clear how Andrew Tate took over TikTok, but it's not immediately obvious why this happened. Why were so many people sharing his clips in the first place? Did it happen organically? Well, the answer lies in the final piece of this puzzle, a piece that I have tried to ignore this entire time because it is so very stupid. Welcome to Hustlers University. Now, at first, it might seem like Andrew Tate at this point was getting all of the fame, but none of the money. Sure, his name was raking in the views, but none of these views were actually on his account. But if you feel sorry for him, then I have great news. He was still directly profiting off of his newfound audience by just getting them to give him money. See, this Tate mania was funneling a massive wave of new fans into his online courses, chief of which is Hustlers University. But HU actually wasn't Andrew's first foray into the world of completely unnecessary online courses. He actually has this old one that he called his PhD program, and it's terrible. Not even just the content, the course itself barely even qualifies as a course. It's basically just a rant.
I'm not gonna break it down to little videos. What I'm just gonna do is I'm just gonna lay down some knowledge for the next long time.
And look, if you are going to make one really long video, then I do think it should at least be somewhat structured. I mean, I'm not saying it has to be a D'Angelo Wallace video, but you got to at least put some effort into it.
I actually went out of my way and bought a whiteboard. That's some genuine effort.
Oh, okay, never mind, there's a whiteboard. So I was already wary about spending any amount of time at all on this course, but I wanted to see if he was offering anything different than his usual awful takes on women. And for a moment, I thought I was going to be surprised.
You are not going to be successful with girls if you hate girls. You need to get that out of your head.
But of course, even when he was almost correct, he was still completely wrong, because this entire course is just him self-reporting the manipulation tactics he uses to ensnare women.
You can put yourself in the right position so that the rules of the game favor you, then you should be very happy women think a particular way.
Women are good actually, because you can easily manipulate them, is pretty much on par with the same harebrained takes I heard in all of his interviews, so I didn't even bother looking at the rest of the course since it was obviously just a desperate cash grab. From a man who can't even get through a single mock date with a woman, by the way. That Dunning-Kruger pack hits different.
Should charge double for this.
And how much was he charging? Well, before he removed the course from his website, $419 US. But hey, at least it was discounted from $900. Anyway, despite being trash and currently unavailable to buy, the PhD program was clearly a viable business model. Andrew Tate would go on to unveil his other course, Hustlers University. But then he shut down Hustlers University and rebranded it and relaunched it as The Real World. So the topic of The Real World, or HU, or whatever you want to call it, is a little bit different from the PhD program. This time, you won't be learning how to get the girls. You will be learning how to get the bag. The Real World is a financial education course where Tate and his hired help will reveal the secrets of wealth creation. Never seen that offered by an influencer before. But The Real World is different, you see. It's not just a learning platform. It's also a community where an alleged 200,000 members get together to make friends, offer help, and celebrate those W's. And as it turns out, this community is actually why Andrew Tate is popular right now. This is where all of those Tate clips were coming from. See, back when it was Hustlers University, the platform included an affiliate program where people who signed up would make money if they referred more people to sign up. And part of those sign-up tactics involved posting Andrew Tate clips online, specifically ones that would cause controversy. You want rage, you want war. And that's a direct quote. So not only was Andrew Tate's blow up online just a calculated move to funnel people into giving him more money, he was all but paying people to post specifically his most harmful content. Now, Tate later shut down the affiliate program due to mysterious circumstances that we will get into later, but the damage has obviously already been done. Now, even though the psyop to make Andrew Tate famous is over, the real world is still very much a thing. And who better to tell us about it than the man himself?
Pitched battles in which armies go to war with machines of death and destruction is about nothing more than influence.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you over the everything. I didn't even add anything to the video. It's just like that. So the problem that the real world is attempting to solve is the fact that not enough people know how to escape the Matrix.
Once they can influence you, they can control you. Every single thing that exists out there inside of the Matrix is done so with a purpose.
And how does one escape the Matrix, you might add? Well, by paying Andrew Tate $50 a month, of course.
This is how I will teach you how to make money in ways you have never heard of before.
Yeah, so these unheard of methods, according to the website, are copywriting, freelancing, stocks, e-commerce, and crypto. Raise a hand for each one of these that you have heard of before. Wait, actually, you probably don't have 5 hands.
The Matrix is cracking, and if you want to escape, I'm waiting for you inside of the real world.
You know what? I'm gonna say it. The Matrix ruined a whole generation of men. Y'all took one look at Neo and said, "It's me, yo. It's a movie made in Hollywood." Anyway, the first thought that crossed my mind when I first heard about HU and the real world is that kind of sounds like a scam. Like, considering how shady all of Tate's other online business ventures are, it's kind of hard to imagine that this would be completely on the up and up. But you know what? It could be. Investigating scams on the internet is not my forte. But thankfully, it's someone's forte.
Today, I'm getting a PhD from Hustler University.
So CoffeeZilla is a YouTuber known for uncovering scams, and he uploaded a look into Hustlers University from the inside. After paying the $50, he immediately noticed the low quality of both the instruction and the material.
Your instructors have a fraction of the charisma of Tate. You're supposed to commit yourself to these skill sets, which are super surface level.
Andrew Tate making a low quality online course? Who would have thought? I bet this one doesn't even have a whiteboard. So the main issue seems to be a mismatch between how the real world is presented and what actually happens once you're inside the program.
You've been told you're gonna escape the Matrix. You're gonna take the red pill. But what you end up doing in this course is sort of learning how to run an Amazon side hustle for Jeff Bezos.
Not quite the life-changing information that Tate was making it out to be. In fact, CoffeeZilla points out that while people were making money, it's not nearly what you would expect from the way Tate talks about it. Overall, whether or not you'd call the real world a scam depends on whether or not you call an overpriced, under-delivering, surface-level course a scam.
This course doesn't seem to be getting people rich. It just teaches lost guys extremely basic skills that are free to learn, but charges them $50 a month for it so they can feel like they're escaping the matrix by working for Jeff Bezos.
And there you have it. By the way, among the other great information in CoffeeZilla's video, he also brings up a couple of really shady things that Andrew does with the real world members who miss a payment.
People who don't renew, we don't kick you out, we put you in the jail, and you sit there in your cell and you have no access to the money-making information, and we just flood you with all the endless wins. Every time someone wins, we show you.
If you took a shot every time this man mentions jail, you wouldn't even be able to make it to the end of this video. Anyway, what he's describing is beyond manipulative and weird, but CoffeeZilla goes into more details about that in his video, and it's a great watch in general, so I definitely recommend checking it out if you haven't already seen it. If you have already seen it though, you're actually in great company because Andrew Tate himself not only watched, but reacted to the video. It is exactly what you would expect.
What does he look like? I don't know.
He looks.
Does he?
Like a geek.
Oh, he must be then.
These people are in their mid-30s, by the way. But yeah, that's the real world / Hustlers University / Andrew Tate's latest cash grab. Or at least it's one of them. See, he also has the War Room, which kind of just looks like a fraternity, except it cost $5,450 to join, so there's that. But if that's not enough, then there's also War Plans. War Plans is apparently a platform where you can pay $17 to have someone on Tate's team give you advice for 10 minutes. My first job out of college, I don't even think I was making $17 an hour, let alone every 10 minutes, but I guess that's more so on me for being a gas station clerk instead of a War Plans advisor. Anyway, Tate's page for the War Plans actually started to make me feel a bit sad. I mean, obviously at this point, I was already sad from the manipulation and the misogyny and Andrew Tate's attempts to rap, but at the bottom of that War Plans page, there are a bunch of user-submitted testimony videos from people who have given their money to Andrew Tate Associates. And as I watched those, this is where it all really started to sink in. This is all just designed to take advantage of young men at their very lowest points.
I've been dealing with a lot of self-doubt.
I have had no one to talk to.
I feel like I can't get advice from anywhere else.
I was lacking guidance.
I just wanted some guidance that my father is not giving me.
Everything Tate is doing lures in guys who are lonely or lost or feel like they have nobody to talk to. And by the way, if some of them looked really young to you, that's because they are.
I've just turned 20 2 days ago.
I turned 18 in a year because I'm 17.
I just turned 17 today.
And what are we doing with all of these young, vulnerable people? Why, funneling them into a $50 a month course, or even worse, towards the $5,000 War Room?
And the best advice he gave me was just to join Hustlers University.
I'm gonna save up my income to join the War Room.
How can I optimize my current financial situation in order to be able to pay the fees for War Room?
It's not just the age or the lack of guidance. I heard so much negative self-talk in those testimonies as well.
It's time for me to stop looking like a ragamuffin.
You stop being a bitch. Get my shit done.
I've wasted the past year of my life.
I don't have any real advantages.
I'm weak in my speech. And I'm weak in the way that I carry myself.
If I had to sum it all up in one word, I would say Andrew Tate is preying upon insecurity above all else. Combating the rampant misogyny that Andrew Tate spreads is obviously the main priority, since it's posing a strong and immediate danger to women everywhere by normalizing harmful behavior. In addition to that, I think it's also pretty important to point out that this wave of vitriol towards women is being propped up on the backs of an insecurity epidemic among men. And like, what are you supposed to feel if not insecure when you have men like Andrew Tate calling you a geek or a loser or poor for drinking tap water? Bottom line, there is real desperation here, and it's just sort of sad to see because these people are crying out to the one person on the internet who doesn't actually care about them.
Feels like we're all in the dark somehow.
I know I'm not a nut. I know what's inside me, and I'll die. I'll die trying.
And the worst part is, at the end of the day, these people will literally turn around and thank Tate because they think that he is solving the problem that he has created.
Tristan, Tate, Good job, guys. Thank you for saving my life.
I guess making money off of incredibly lonely and desperate men via webcams wasn't enough, so he decided to find other methods of doing this as well. If there's a way to even slightly benefit from something negative or wrong with the world, Andrew Tate will figure it out. So yeah, fun. So far, we've taken a look at the worldview Andrew shared via interviews, the perfect storm that led to his TikTok takeover, and the shady online courses that were the driving force behind his completely fabricated rise to prominence. Honestly, if I had to end the video right here, it would kind of be a little depressing because up until this point, he has basically gotten off scot-free with every single thing he's done. But little did we all know that life was about to drop the hammer on Andrew Tate, both online and in a very real way. Andrew Tate and social media bans go way back. Remember during the Big Brother days when he came under fire for his tweets? That was just the beginning. He would continue to post awful things on Twitter, getting closer and closer to crossing the line. And then in October 2017, right at the height of the Me Too movement, he just pole vaulted over said line in the middle of an unhinged Twitter rant about how not all of Harvey Weinstein's victims are victims. He says the following: if you put yourself in a position to be raped, you must bear some responsibility. And then he goes on to say, with sexual assault, they want to put zero blame on the victim whatsoever. Yeah, so who's gonna tell them that not blaming victims of assault is kind of the point and the general best practice in this scenario? And better question, what kind of person needs to be told this? Now, if his stances somehow weren't clear enough, he goes on to detail exactly how he would shift the blame onto his sister if he found out this sort of thing happened to her. He follows that up by saying, pretending women are blameless and men shouldn't rape is stupid. And at that point, even Twitter was like, okay, well, this is obviously a terms of service violation. Let's just call the whole thing off. And thus, the Cobra Tate Twitter account was permanently banned. Well, almost permanently. But before we get into that, I do want to point out that Andrew later went on to clarify his positions in those tweets.
I'd like to take this time and explain what I was saying in long format video.
Except for the part where the only thing that he clarified was the fact that he meant every single word, literally.
I was having an argument with a feminist, and she was saying that we need to teach men not to rape. And I said, my dear, I love how idealistic you are, but I am realistic.
I feel like if someone says we need to teach men not to rape, and your first thought is anything other than, I agree, or yes, or so true, bestie, then you may need to reevaluate some things. But Tate says that we already teach men that, so the real responsibility would be on women to prevent this from happening.
If I were to take $1 million in cash and walk down the street at night in the worst part of town holding it, to a degree, I would have some responsibility. When I got robbed, the police would come and say, why did you do that?
He really thinks he's doing something with this comparison, but play stupid games, win stupid prizes does not apply to assault. Nobody is saying that women should not worry about their safety. We're saying that women should not have to worry about their safety. Being alone, drinking at a club, going home with a stranger, these are not things that should come with the danger of being assaulted.
The smartest thing a woman can do to prevent rape is not to sit here on a podcast and try and change the way men think and talk about your bullshit, but to take some degree of personal responsibility and not put yourself in dangerous situations.
Instead of listening to one woman talk about the deep-rooted societal issues that have enabled this culture where women are in danger, he would just rather have her shut up and all women just be a little bit smarter and everybody should be fine. And remember that this is him clarifying his tweets. This was literally his opportunity to not sound like this.
I'd like to think that's a pretty logical point.
I mean, it might sound logical to a rapist maybe, but I, on the other hand, am not really convinced. Anyway, the original tweets were already bad enough on their own, so like I said, Twitter dropped the ban hammer. Now, Andrew Tate would actually attempt to evade this ban several times over the next few years with a handful of accounts, getting so far with the 2021 account that he was actually verified. So you were banned on Twitter. They said that all future accounts you make will be banned. And then you directly reach out to Twitter so that they can verify that you are the person that they banned from making new accounts. But like, it worked? I do not know who's dumber in this case, Andrew Tate or Twitter. Now, this behavior obviously turned a few heads with people wondering why Twitter would ban and then later verify the same individual. But Twitter said in a statement in early 2022 that Tate's account was, quote, verified in error and has since been permanently suspended. So finally, Tate was permanently banned for real this time. almost. So a couple months passed, we reached mid-2022, his fans make him famous, got that part. Well, after months of this Tate insanity being flung on every single corner of the internet, it was starting to look pretty bad for the social media platforms where this was all going down. You can't talk about Andrew Tate without talking about how social media platforms not only allowed but promoted his content as well. So in August of that year, another tech company decided to do something about it. Meta owns both Facebook and Instagram, so they banned him from both platforms simultaneously. They said in a statement that Tate was violating the company's policies on dangerous organizations and individuals, and that the ban was permanent. Now, this caused a domino effect. With Tate officially banned from 3 of the world's largest social media platforms, the others decided that now was the time to follow suit. Just a couple days later, TikTok announced that they had banned Andrew Tate as well. They said that they were not only banning Tate, but using technology to track down re-uploads of his content too, making this a more effective ban than the others. Not that effective though, because I was still flooded with so much misogynistic content on TikTok and I didn't even really have to look for it. But hey, at least they disabled the Andrew Tate hashtag, but only after it had surpassed 13 billion views. Now, there was only one major player left and they were about to make their move. YouTube was the last social media giant to ban Tate from their platform, and they did so very shortly after the others. They pointed out that his content was violating their hate speech policy and that he wouldn't be able to come back at any point. So within less than a week, Tate had gone from being banned on Twitter to being banned on pretty much everything. Tate seemingly knew this was the end of the road too, because the day that Meta and TikTok banned him, that was the day he shut down his Hustlers University affiliate program that made him famous in the first place. At this point, I'm pretty sure the only social media account he had with a following was like on the video platform Rumble. Pro tip, if you're banned on all social media except Rumble, then you should probably just delete your Rumble account too. Even giving up would be less sad than uploading Rumble exclusive content. Though I guess he still had his Vimeo account, but does Vimeo even really count as social media? I honestly have no idea. Anyway, Tate was going out sad, but it was only just beginning. He decided to upload a 1 hour and 13-minute video statement about his ban, and the only word I can really think of to describe it is pain. If there's one thing he really wanted you to know, it's that he's not emotionally affected.
It doesn't emotionally affect me, not negatively affected. It didn't personally bother me. Without being emotionally affected, I don't take any of these decisions personally. I wasn't emotionally affected by this. I'm not an emotional person. I do not do emotional responses. I'm a very logical man. It doesn't emotionally affect me. I really am not the type of person to take these things personally. I am not emotional.
Oof. Another tough watch. This entire video is so hard to get through because it made me realize something. Andrew Tate cannot carry a video by himself. There's a reason that all his other popular videos involve him talking to other people, because if there's nobody there to guide the conversation, he just repeats himself over and over in circles. But regardless, I sorted through the entire hour with all the repetition and rambling, and these were his main points.
Narratives are being purported which are absolutely and utterly false.
So the thesis of this video is that everybody calling Tate misogynistic is actually just lying. Not only that, but the people calling out the misogyny, they don't even care about women, apparently.
None of these people who are attacking me care about women. None of them donate to women's charities. None of them donate to charity like I do.
People like Andrew Tate love this argument. Like, you don't really care about insert marginalized group. You're just calling me out because you like calling people out. The moment someone says that, I'm like, okay, well, they've clearly been backed into a corner.
I do not like having long form video of me cut up, elements taken out of context.
Got me there, Andrew. So he's going for the old I was taken out of context approach. But as someone who has all of the context, let me tell you, it's not going to save you. I watched all 5 interviews that I pulled clips from in their entirety. I read the entire Twitter thread that got him banned. Heck, I even watched him in Big Brother to make sure I had the full context of how he was acting. And in none of those cases was there ever actually a misleading context. If he said something that sounds shady, then it was shady. We didn't change it to make it sound that way. If it sounded misogynistic or wrong, it was misogynistic and wrong, because Tate continues to be misogynistic and wrong. There is no grand agenda to make you seem worse. You're just already the worst.
It's very, very easy to take 2 hours of video, snip out 10 seconds, edit it up quickly on a phone app, and then blow it up to millions and millions of views with all context removed.
So fun fact, actually really sad fact, he's the one who told people to do this. The only reason he's famous is because he practically paid people to post short, controversial, rage farming videos in every corner of the internet, specifically with the intention of increasing his online profile. The fact that he's now complaining about what he asked his fans to do is some pretty spineless stuff.
And this is something that I can't control.
I must have missed the part in the 41 Tenets of Manliness where we're supposed to play the victim instead of owning up and taking accountability, but to be fair, I was barely reading most of those.
I will blame myself for the fact that people have managed to do this to me.
Like, for a guy who talks so much about personal responsibility, it sure does seem to be in short supply. He also has this one line, and y'all don't understand, I am obsessed with it.
If my mentality is so wrong, how have I managed to amass enormous wealth?
How can I be a bad person if I'm rich? Huh? That is a level of out of touch that I can only aspire to. Anyway, speaking of wealth, Tate announces that he will be starting a foundation to help women and men.
The Tate Foundation is going to be dedicated towards helping men's mental health and also protecting women from violence against men.
I honestly think the best thing he could do for men's mental health is to be open about how empty his entire way of life is. That way people can stop driving themselves crazy in the pursuit of something that was never actually going to bring them fulfillment in the first place. And if he wants to protect women from violent men, I feel like maybe he could start by not having his lackeys flood TikTok with him depicting violence against women. The Tate Foundation's #1 priority has got to be finding a new owner.
If I'm going to continue on social media, I need to be a lot more careful with my content. Not because I'm saying bad things, but because I'm saying things that could be used against me.
Anyway, those were his main points. I will say though, because he was rambling so much, he kept saying a bunch of really poorly thought out things that do not make him sound good, like this.
I never would only talk negatively about women. I talked negatively about men all the time.
In fact, according to Andrew, he barely talks about women at all, apparently.
The times women were mentioned, which is a very small percentage, 2 or 3% of my overall content.
Sure. The fact that 4 out of like the 5 interviews I picked at random all just happen to be about women, it's just a quirky coincidence. They're definitely not the main thing you talk about when you run out of conversation topics, which is literally 2 minutes into any interview you've ever been in. But anyway, that was his final message. We've got, I was taken out of context, I'm actually the victim, and the people calling me out don't even really care about the problem. The trifecta of a cornered bigot, you hate to see it. Now, if we have established one thing about Andrew Tate, is that he's just gonna keep talking, right? So even though that video was named Final Message, he was right back in the limelight literally 2 days later, doing an interview about his unfair cancellation on Fox News, apparently.
They banned me simply because I had large swaths of the population agreeing to very traditional masculine values.
And in this completely pointless interview, you'll never guess what he starts talking about once he runs out of conversation topics. You will probably definitely guess.
If you go into an Instagram feed, you have extremely beautiful women, which is fine. They're beautiful, they're allowed to take pictures. But the only men who have followers are men with massive social status, right? Men with Ferraris and money, or rappers, or people who have YouTube channels, interesting people.
Aw, he's talking about me. Anyway, my guy is literally complaining that you have to be interesting for people to follow you online. And it's like, yeah? But I actually hear this complaint from men a lot though. Like, as a man, I have to be, insert something that no one actually ever told me I have to be. But women, they just gotta look pretty and they get followers. To any man who says that, I raise you 2 points. 1, being beautiful takes a lot of effort. I mean, I manage, but it's not easy. And 2, what's stopping you though? Put on the maid outfit, do that TikTok dance, wear thigh highs while lip syncing to Boy's a Liar Part 2 by Pink Pantheress featuring Ice Spice. Specifically Ice Spice's part. Like, you will get followers. You're just too afraid of them.
They think that by banning me, I'm just going to vanish and the young men are just going to go and start eating the gruel that they're fed on their YouTube feed. They don't want to read. They don't want to see transgender people wear makeup. They don't want to see that.
Yes. The only 2 forms of content on the internet. Andrew Tate being misogynistic and transgender people wearing makeup. Fox News literally causes brain rot. Anyway, because it is Fox News, Andrew unironically spends the rest of the interview going on and on about how he was an anti-masker during COVID-19, so it might actually just be best to move on from that interview. And that was a recap of how Andrew Tate got banned on the internet. I mean, to be fair, it literally didn't accomplish anything whatsoever. Since his content is still all over the place, the damage has already been done, and people keep inviting him onto their platform, so it's pretty much like he never left, but yeah. Great job, big tech. Happily ever after, I guess. Now, if this wasn't quite the hard-hitting, well-deserved, full circle ending you were looking for, it's more so just like guy gets banned from Twitter, then I would say look no further, because Andrew Tate was about to get banned in real life. The funniest thing about Andrew Tate's ultimate downfall is that it actually seemed like a bit of a comeback at first. Remember how Twitter was dumb enough to verify someone that they had previously banned? Well, it turns out the company was about to get a whole lot dumber. In October of 2022, Elon Musk officially became the CEO of Twitter. Now, I could dedicate an entire video to the many stupid decisions that Elon made with this platform, but the one that matters here revolves around something he called freedom of reach. See, freedom of speech, but not freedom of reach, was Musk's pithy yet pitiful justification for why he should allow hateful content to exist on the platform. In other words, it was just a thinly veiled excuse to reverse a bunch of high-profile bans, because Elon Musk has never once heard the phrase, "If it ain't broke, don't fix it." So the very month after Elon became CEO, Andrew Tate was unbanned from Twitter. And the very month after Andrew Tate was unbanned on Twitter, he was already going viral over a short-lived yet powerful internet beef with none other than
Greta Thunberg.
Greta is a Swedish environmental activist who rose to prominence at a very young age. In fact, in December of last year, when this Twitter incident happened, she was only 19. Andrew Tate, being Andrew Tate, decided to reach out to Greta with a message, and it's all kinds of sad. "Hello, Greta. I have 33 cars. My Bugatti has a W16 8-liter quad turbo. My 2 Ferrari 812 Competizione have 6.5-liter V12s. This is just the start. Please provide your email address." What voice am I doing right now? Who is that supposed to be? "Please provide your email address so I can send a complete list of my car collection and their respective enormous emissions." Now, most of the time, bringing up someone's age doesn't really make much of a point, but in this specific case, allow me to reiterate, mid-30s. Greta herself responded to this in a tweet that was much shorter, but definitely still got her point across. Yes, please do enlighten me. Email me at smallenergy@getalife.com. Personally, I think this is a solid reply. The original tweet is silly, the reply is silly, fair game. But what made this particularly scathing wasn't just the call out itself. It was the ratio. Whereas Andrew's tweet has a formidable 230,000 likes, Greta's comeback became the number 3 most liked tweet on the entire platform at a whopping 3.8 million likes. That's a lot of damage. I'm pretty sure if I got humiliated to that degree right after getting unbanned, I would just ask Twitter if they could ban me again, because at that point, there is no point. Now, I feel like a normal, well-adjusted person would just take the L and move on. Maybe make another little comment, perhaps like some shady tweets, but just call it a day, right? But normal and well-adjusted are not qualities that we are dealing with here, now are they? Instead of just moving on, Andrew Tate drops an entire video response to her one tweet.
I'm not actually mad at Greta.
Emotionally unaffected, I'm sure. The man is dropping a response video because he got ratioed 16-1 by a teenage girl on Twitter. Be so for real right now? This is the definition of being mad. Anyway, he tries to show us once again how cool he is by not caring about the environment.
"Please bring me pizza and make sure that these boxes are not recycled."
This is giving off the same energy as those people who will like walk up to a vegan like, "I just ate a burger check." Like, okay, did you want like a medal or a cookie? I could even make it with milk and eggs if it's so important to you. You didn't end veganism just because you ate a burger, much like Andrew Tate did not accomplish anything by ordering pizza. Anyway, Andrew goes on to make fun of Greta because Sweden is cold? ?
Greta, with a little hate-filled face, bitter, sitting somewhere without the heating on, in the cold, a little hat, shivering.
Now, this was already sad enough, but he goes on to explain that actually, Greta didn't really ratio him. It was all just a psyop by, and I kid you not, the Matrix.
The global Matrix got this bot farm to like and retweet and all this bot commenting.
So at this point, the internet was buzzing. Tate was getting a lot of attention once again, but for once, he was probably about to wish that he wasn't. Just hours after the response video, when all eyes were still on him, Andrew Tate and his brother were detained by Romanian officials over a human trafficking and assault case. After all these years, all the strange comments about going to jail, the rap bars about police raids, the weird Discord jail that he put his followers in when they stopped paying him $50 a month, I guess. After all of this, Andrew Tate was about to go to jail. Romanian police arrested Andrew at his Romanian complex late at night as part of an ongoing investigation. Both he and his brother Tristan were apprehended and taken to an agency for DICOT, or the Directorate for Investigating Organized Crime and Terrorists. And you'll never guess what Andrew had to say about all of this. The Matrix sent their agents. Now, saying this online is pretty much what I've come to expect at this point, but would you believe that he actually said this in real life while he was being escorted by police?
The Matrix has attacked me.
This phrase is usually overused, but my man literally thinks he's the main character. Now, because Andrew's response video to Greta and the arrest happened so close to each other, people online started doing some theorizing, and they came up with a very important question. Did Andrew Tate get busted because of the pizza box? Viral tweets started floating around, insinuating that Romanian authorities used the pizza box to confirm that he was in the country, thereby prompting the arrest. It is true that Romanian officials took his social media into account as they conducted their investigation, but while it would be an amazing piece of poetic justice, the pizza box was not responsible for the arrest. In fact, Romanian prosecutors had already been working on this case for a while before that. Though, despite the pizza box claims being untrue, we did get one additional Greta tweet out of it, and I actually think this is the better of the two. This is what happens when you don't recycle your pizza boxes. And that was the day that Andrew Tate got ratioed so hard that the person responsible got not one, but 2 spots in the top 10 most liked tweets of all time. Oof. Now, as funny as all of that was, the investigation itself is not funny at all. Like I said, they had already been planning this for a while, and in doing so, they uncovered some pretty disturbing allegations. What's important to note is that at the time of this video, Andrew Tate hasn't actually been convicted of anything. What they're doing right now is attempting to prepare evidence in order to send him and his brother, along with a couple of other people, to trial. And they are determined to find evidence. Andrew Tate wasn't just arrested that night. Officials raided his property as well, but that was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, officials would go on to search 7 houses total belonging to Tate as part of their ongoing investigation. According to a DICOT spokesperson, the search for evidence was now spanning multiple counties. They also shared that there were 6 alleged trafficking victims who were manipulated and coerced into creating adult content for Andrew Tate to profit from. It says a lot that this wasn't even the first time Tate had been raided in Romania either. Back in April 2022, just months before he would go from relative obscurity to overnight fame, Andrew Tate was raided in a human trafficking investigation. Tate was so irrelevant at the time that nobody really covered it outside of tabloids, and he was able to write it off as being a simple case of swatting.
I was effectively swatted.
I suffered from a case of swatting.
Swatting is a harassment tactic where you make an illegal prank call to authorities in order to pretend like some serious crime is going on in an attempt to try to send authorities over to that person's residence. But whether or not someone called this in, am I supposed to believe it's just a coincidence that police came back and arrested him for the exact same thing 8 months later? In fact, notice they mentioned that the other crime he's under suspicion of is assault. It turns out that he actually had an investigation for that very same thing in a different instance all the way back in the UK in 2015. He was arrested and everything, but he was never charged, and the case was eventually dropped. However, the 2 women who came forward to the police believe that their case was mishandled, and even the police themselves said they apologized to the accusers due to delays in the investigation. By the way, this specific investigation really recontextualizes something that came up earlier in the video. As you recall, Tate said that he was dropped from Big Brother over some silly plan, but Channel 5 said that it was actually over information that had come to light. Tate then claimed that said information was some BDSM video, when that really didn't make too much sense either. Well, it turns out that he was dropped only 5 days after producers were told about those 2015 allegations against him. So these very same kinds of allegations have followed Tate over the course of not just months, but years. From one country to another as well. I mean, it raises some doubts about his move to Romania. The way he tells it in the clips we watched, he claims his move to Romania was motivated by frustration at the police for launching an investigation when he believes he was falsely accused. But this isn't the story he's always gone with when it comes to his reasoning.
If you're living in the Western world, this is probably 40% of the reason I moved to Romania, because in Eastern Europe, none of this garbage flies. If you're gonna go to the police and say he raped me back in 1988, they're gonna say we should have done something about it then.
In yet another angry rant about why the Me Too movement was actually bad, he claims that it didn't even really help women, it just endangered men. But there's only one kind of man who would actually be endangered by that movement.
Oh, well, you're a rapist. I say, no, I'm not a rapist. But I like the idea of being able to just say to do what I want. I like being free.
Now, as bad as all of this sounds, Tate claims that it's just because he's worried about fake allegations, not real ones.
The point is, I don't like knowing that any woman I ever spoken to ever can destroy my life.
But despite that, getting investigated for a crime, moving to another country because the laws for that crime are more lax according to you, and then still getting hit with many allegations of the crime even in the new place. It's not just ironic, it's extremely questionable. Anyway, I just bring those up because those resurfaced as people were sort of looking into this, and I think they lend a lot of context to the situation. Now, getting back to the post-pizza arrest. Tate was initially meant to be detained for 24 hours, but this was extended to 30 days by a Romanian court. He appealed the decision, but he wasn't successful. The allotted time passes, the investigation continues, and his detention is extended by 30 days for a second time. By now, he was starting to become a court regular, so much so that reporters knew exactly where to find him.
You know I'm innocent. There's not much justice in Romania.
He hyped up Romania for all those years because it wasn't like the Western world. But now that he's on the wrong side of the law, all of a sudden there's no justice. Classic. Anyway, time passes and his detention is extended for a third time. Now, you know how he repeated over and over how emotionally unaffected he was in his final statement, or how he made a point to let us know that he wasn't mad at Greta. He just kind of seems like the kind of person who thinks that if he says something enough times, it'll become true. And by now, it seemed like he was desperately trying to make his own innocence come true.
Everybody knows I'm innocent. It's okay. Everyone knows I'm innocent. Everybody knows I'm innocent.
But then his detention was extended for a fourth time. Remember when Tristan said he and his brother do everything together? Andrew had actually expressed a similar sentiment as well.
We work together, we live together, we train together, we share a bank account. We'll never live apart.
And with them being detained together for months at this point, it was starting to look like Tate's prediction of never living apart was going to come true in the worst possible way. Now, this should come as no surprise to anybody at this point, but even while detained, Andrew Tate could not stop running his mouth. He released an email to his subscribers, and it was, of course, ridiculous. They are trying to break me, thrown in a cell without light. Cockroaches, lice, and bed bugs are my only friends at night. Now, from the snippet, I actually thought the rest of the letter was going to rhyme, but then it didn't, so I immediately lost interest. Tate also took to Twitter while being detained, waxing philosophical about his quote, long beard and head full of hair. But if a letter from jail and tweets from jail weren't enough for you, would you believe that the man actually dropped merch from jail? I don't know what's worse. The fact that he charged $133 for a free Tate hoodie, or the fact that people actually bought it. Anyway, jail merch and other silliness aside, there is one very serious question that hangs over this entire investigation. Did he actually do it? Right now, there's just conflicting testimonies. Some members from Tate's team have already come forward and defended their boss. His bodyguard, who is apparently one of Tate's most senior staff members, told the BBC that the accusers are, quote, young and stupid, and that he would never doubt Andrew. Not much of a rebuttal, but I guess it's something at least. Two women have come forward as well, also in defense of Tate.
I've never seen any of them being aggressive or rude. They've always respected people.
Of all stances to take, this is probably the weirdest, seeing as Andrew is just objectively rude, aggressive, and disrespectful. She also starts spouting off Andrew's talking points about how he got it out the mud, like verbatim, and it's kind of weird.
They started from zero. They lived in a shelter with their mom.
Nevertheless, they both maintain Tate's innocence, or rather they both maintain the fact that they never saw anything and they were never actually personally affected. So yeah, make of that what you will from one of Tate's highest paid bodyguards and two women who literally have property of Tate and Tate Girl tattooed on their bodies. He's convinced at least 22 women to do this, by the way. And that was just the total in 2019.
How many girls have your name on them now?
22. I got 20. I'm on 22.
So I did want to include some vouchers for Tate's potential innocence, but the prosecutors are obviously telling a much different story. Since his arrest, they've released far more details about this case they're building, and it's not looking good. They tell the story of a woman from Moldova who was allegedly lured in by Tate with promises of a new life and even a potential marriage. And in exchange, he would demand utter loyalty from her. Again with the loyalty. Now, unfortunately, this is where prosecutors allege that once she arrived in Romania, Tate assaulted her several times and attempted to coerce her into creating adult content for his profit. Another woman, this one from America, was allegedly lured in by Tristan with the promise of money and more false feelings. Prosecutors claim that when she got there, she wasn't allowed outside without Tristan's permission. He would track her whereabouts and that she felt afraid of both brothers. So those are the allegations coming from the other side of this situation. The definitive truth has yet to be revealed, but I honestly believe that the most telling statement of all comes from Andrew Tate himself. So remember that PhD course that he used to sell, the one where he was teaching you how to get the women? It has since been removed, but fairly recently actually. I viewed an archived version, and this is a quote that's on the course's landing page. "My job was to get women to fall in love with me. Literally, that was my job. My job was to meet a girl, go on a few dates, sleep with her, test if she's quality, get her to fall in love with me to where she'd do anything I say, and then get her on webcam so we could become rich together. Whether you agree or disagree with what I did with their loyalty, submission, and love for me doesn't matter. You cannot reject the results." We all remember the chart he drew with him at the top taking all of the girls' money, right? We heard him explicitly share his tips and tricks for how to control women via emotional manipulation. He's preoccupied with the idea of winding up in jail again someday, and he's the one who said that lenient laws were a big part of the reason that he moved to Romania. Despite what he believed, women were never the threat. Andrew Tate's biggest liability when it comes to incrimination is, and has always been, himself. So that kind of brings us to right now when I'm putting out this video. The future isn't set in stone, but there have been a few key updates between then and now. First of all, the brothers finally won one of their appeals, successfully getting the court to transfer them from jail to house arrest for 30 days. Now, a lot of Tate supporters are trying to use this as some sort of checkmate moment to prove that Romanian officials never had anything on Tate in the first place, but this isn't the case at all. No charges have been dropped and the trial is still impending. The only thing that's changed is that he's now being held at his own house instead of at jail. They're not free by any stretch of the imagination, and prosecutors have until June to take the case to trial. And by the way, this rare Tate W of actually winning an appeal after losing the last 4 was obviously just a one-off, because just over a week before this video came out, it was announced that the Tate brothers' house arrest had already been extended for an additional 30 days. At this point, they may just be under lock and key right up until their trial. In fact, this transfer from actual jail to fancy jail has pretty much been the only slightly positive thing that's happened to the Tate brothers since this whole arrest went down. In many other aspects, things are actually getting worse. For example, Tristan Tate just got hit with yet another charge according to DICOT, and this one is for inciting others to violence. There's also been discussions about a money laundering charge, and while that has not been leveled, it's clear that the prosecutors are thinking about hitting the Tates with everything that they can. Speaking of additional allegations, even more people have come forward about Andrew Tate at this point, and it's safe to say that a really disturbing pattern has emerged. Women back in the UK have been gearing up to sue Tate over even more assault allegations, physical and otherwise, and they've already enlisted the help of a law firm. Like many things surrounding Andrew Tate right now, these are allegations and not convictions. But that doesn't make it any less unsettling how many times this has happened up until this point. To combat these new allegations, Tate's lawyer actually tried to bring up the 2015 case we discussed earlier, using the fact that it was dismissed as a way to discredit this new one. However, that doesn't hold up when even the police admitted that there were problems with that investigation. After a certain point, you kind of have to ask yourself, how many of these allegations can Tate actually dodge? It almost feels like he can't outrun them forever, but there's absolutely no way of telling how this will pan out, since Tate, of course, has maintained his innocence every step of the way. Honestly, we won't know the truth about the specifics regarding the investigation and the case until those are released. released. However, it's still really important to note that there is still so much to criticize, even setting aside the criminal aspect. While some of the wrongdoing associated with Tate is alleged, the vast majority of this are things he actually said and did on video. He's left behind a wave of misogyny on the internet, and we are probably going to be seeing the effects of that for a very long time. UK government officials have already spoken out about Tate's harmful ideology, and they were met with an unsurprising yet disappointing wave of hate, because that's exactly what Andrew Tate inspires in his followers. And speaking of followers, there are still quite a few. Some of them may even be right here watching this video with you right now, though something tells me they probably wouldn't have made it this far. The good news is, though, people are not putting up with this. As prevalent as Andrew Tate's content has managed to become, I've always noticed that the backlash is even stronger. The last statement I want to go over in today's video is a brief one from Andrew Tate's lawyer. Apparently, in one of the Romanian court documents, this lawyer claimed that Tate's online persona is, quote, a virtual character, and that this character has nothing to do with the real man. I've seen this argument used a lot too, most often by Tate's supporters, to prove that he's sort of immune from criticism in their minds because he acts so stereotypical to the point of almost seeming like a cartoon character. However, we followed him through the years and saw how he espoused the same values before he even started changing up his presentation to be more over the top. I don't think the debate about whether he is or is not playing a character really changes the outcome at all. The outcome is that Tate spread a bunch of harmful content on the internet, and it spread out doing a bunch of damage. If he did this as a character just for the sole purpose of getting followers and money, like his lawyer said, that would still be a despicable act regardless. Even if he is a character, he's obviously in complete agreement with the things that he's saying. Otherwise, they would not have been things he said before he started really playing up the Andrew Tate of it all. So at the end of the day, I don't really feel like this makes things better or worse. But there you have it. That was sort of the larger ending that we were sort of headed towards. Not so much a Twitter ban, but rather trapped in the middle of multiple investigations, which he almost seems to have been on the run from for years. He told on himself from day one. His entire career was like some sort of predictable, pitiful, self-fulfilling prophecy. And no matter what outcomes arise in the future, he's always going to be known as the one influencer who wound up getting banned, not just from the internet, but in real life as well. And that was banned in real life, the predictable fate of Andrew Tate. Well, that was kind of a big one, as you can tell. This is actually the longest video I've ever made to date. I wrote, researched, and edited this entire video by myself because I'm crazy, but I am so proud of my work with this one. As I mentioned earlier, I'm really glad to be back, and I'm grateful to everyone for watching my previous video as well. Definitely keep your eye on the channel because you never know when I'll be popping up with a quick video in between the longer uploads like this one. But yeah, as always, thank you so much for the support. Thank you for watching if you happen to make it this far, and I am looking forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye.
It's really not my intention to personally upset people. I'm, believe it or not, a relatively positive guy.